Welcome, everyone, to the Marketing Influence Spotlight Industry Game Changers. I'm your host, Paula Kioki. Today, we're going to explore how B2B data industry is evolving beyond the traditional build it and license model, one that we know well here at OMI. Buyers now expect faster access, more flexibility, and easier activation, while many data companies are still undervaluing or underutilizing the value of their own assets. Joining me today is Aaron Dix, CEO of Better Data, and that's BETTR Data, who's helping reshape how data is distributed, accessed, and monetized through more automated, on-demand infrastructure. I've known Aaron, what, about a year?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
a
I've known
little
Aaron,
over a year. That's
so we
right.
know each other, and I think what he's doing is very timely. So we kind of wanted to dive into it and let the listeners understand what's happening in this space. We ourselves at OMI are exploring new distribution models, can't talk today, including partnerships in this space. So this is something very actively we're thinking about and not just observing from the outside.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, let's start at a high level. From your perspective, what do you think is fundamentally broken about B2B data and how it's bought and sold today?
That's a great question. First, I'd just say also thanks for having me on. I appreciate
Pleasure.
it.
Of course.
Lovely to be here. And really, the fundamentally broken is what's fundamentally broken is that all too often it's still being treated like it's being sold in 2005. There's static files, manual contracts, custom pulls, all leads to delayed delivery. So taking time with often a technical person in the loop, and more frequently in this space, buyers want speed.
Okay.
They want to self-service, they want transparency and usability, and that's the shift. I think that's what we're leaning towards. And if we don't mention AI 10 times in this conversation, I'd be pretty surprised.
Right.
And all leans towards more hands-on accessibility.
So I know your platform allows you like pretty much to download and go versus like a traditional API platform where they can just pull one record at a time, or does your platform allow for that too? Just
It, yeah,
zoom
it
as you
it
want? Okay.
It does. I think that's a piece of it as well. So, being able to operate with different systems and being able to tie things together.
Mhm.
But ours does also allow them to use a user interface to in natural language explain what type of data they want, what their ICP is, as an example,
Mhm.
and get recommendations from the AI, and using that metadata from a first class data set like OMI's to get recommendations on what type of data they should be using.
Oh, wow. So it does that. That's awesome.
It does, yeah.
Well, I think it's going to get even more so important because, and I think maybe you and I've talked about this when we've met in person, is the B2B buyer now today is 72% millennials,
Yeah.
and they don't really want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
They want to kind of do everything themselves. They might need some help at the very end, but they kind of want that. See it with my nephews. They kind of want just to be able to go and do everything themselves and not have to talk to somebody. Least of all, a salesperson.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have customer service though that if need be, but do you
Uh,
find that people complete the transaction most of the time without having to
yeah.
talk to somebody?
Absolutely. And we it's been a journey for us to get better and better at that, embedding things that give you a little pointer and say, "Here, here's what's next," and iterating through that workflow about making it as easy as possible. But as we add more AI and, just have folks explain what they want, it seems like what folks are starting to expect. Like, hey, I just want to tell it what I want. I want to
Mhm.
paste in something and get to the final product.
So what do you think, from the buyer side, like the agency brands, what do you think they're frustrated with that most data vendors aren't addressing? Is it the speed issue or is it the
I think that buyers are frustrated by any whether it's speed or friction, I would call
Mm,
it. Just
okay.
what's in my way of accomplishing what I want to do, and that can come with having somebody in the middle that they might not be there. You know, sometimes people want that still, but I think again to your statistic about millennials and them wanting to have control and empowerment to quickly complete the goal of what they're trying to do, which is typically some marketing um,
Mhm.
cycle, then giving them putting that in their hands.
Yeah.
I think unclear coverage, delayed quotes, tough contracting processes. So, going through a
Everybody
challenging.
hates that.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. It's difficult for us
Yeah.
now as well, and that doesn't seem to be getting all that much easier that fast. That's one of
Mhm.
those places where it's still a struggle for folks to get through all the contracting to get what they need.
So now, do you do B2C and B2B data in your platform?
We do. Yeah, we allow for any data sets that are not a compliance risk
Okay.
and that folks want. So yeah, both B2B, B2C, and then some other niche sets like property as an example or auto. Those are some examples of additional ones.
And when your team goes to be, and I'm curious of this being a data provider, when your team goes and talks to data providers, do they have to be really sold on this, or do they kind of see this is the new wave, this is coming on, or
I think that they see it as an additional distribution channel that has, low friction. I mean, there's a little bit of contracting that has to happen back to that, but other than that, it's really getting it's pushing that narrative that people want to further productize what their high quality data sets. So, more so now, the high quality data set is not the moat itself. It is the distribution of it and the packaging and the productization of it is what's building a completed product and enabling people to use that in their marketing channels. So
so
I think that's where
ease of activation more so even than just the raw data quality is you think the primary driver?
I think a big one. Yeah, absolutely. Being able to productize, being able to package that in one thing and have an easy interface, experience and activation path all come together into one.
And do you get any feedback from the customer side when they access the data of what they're actually I'm speaking from the B2B side now.
Yeah,
Do
sure.
you get any feedback about how they're using it or what they I mean, do you think it's slanted more towards programmatic and social or email marketing or direct mail or all?
We don't always get that
Okay.
feedback about what folks are doing with it. I mean, I would just say generally email is almost always involved. But what they're doing with it, from pushing it downstream to
Nice.
a Meta or an Instagram or direct mail campaigns, not direct mail, but direct email campaigns, excuse
Right.
me, um, are amongst the high
I would
frequency
think so
activation channels.
because it's pretty easy to take it and upload it into Meta or LinkedIn in particular. Agencies would probably use a DSP, but I would think so, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. We push a lot of data to LiveRamp, and similar platforms like that.
So, what do you see as the biggest gap between the value data providers have and the revenue they're actually capturing as relates to trying to work in this ecosystem?
Um, I would kinda go back to that, gap being the monetization of the data set,
Mhm.
and not the access layer or the experience. So, I think there's big opportunity there to couple those things and take the ingredients and deliver a cake, if you will.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the gaps right now that folks are leaning towards. How can we make that experience different? How can we paste in our ICP and get back a result from that, versus having to step it through, and think through it ourselves?
Some monetization, and then do you get much pushback on the concern about leakage of their data or that they're yeah, do you get much concern from the data provider?
Y It goes both ways, in that Well, from data, everybody should be concerned about it.
Yeah.
Is my feedback. The data providers should be concerned about it. The data consumers should be concerned about it. The data vendors and service providers should be concerned. Um, and what I will say there is that we have tried to be a leader in that space. In that, while we deal with a lot of PI, we're thinking through the problems that can exist for that data leakage, and how you use AI when you do have PI involved. And so my answer is everybody should be worried about it, and they should be talking to people that are trying to solve that problem, and make sure that we are doing things correctly and in compliance with all the laws that need to be taken care of.
Do you have a let's say somebody says, "Okay, I think I wanna download a couple million records." Does that, like, set off a thing where they have to speak to somebody, or can they what is there a point where you have to speak to somebody if you're trying to take a really big dump of data?
It does, yeah. We have that per data set as
Yeah,
example. So, not even per vendor, but even a data set that would be, yeah, let's just say, really niche and high quality. You could put that as a lower limit so that we get alerted. Yeah, it won't let you fully walk through the experience unless, and you can even have clients. You might have clients that you've worked with for the long time, and you allow them to have higher limits. So we have exceptions for
'cause you
um, repeat, frequent, or approved purchasers.
yeah, 'cause being a data supplier ourselves, we're always worried about piracy.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
One of the most dreaded conversations that we never want to have is, hey, somebody pulled X amount of records, and they're not who they said they were.
and it does happen, I mean, it even can happen within size like a not talking about a system like yours, but within a corporation where somebody just absconds with data, so everybody's always worried about their data. Um,
Absolutely,
do
yep,
you guys
as we should be.
yes. So there's so many different alternative methods. I mean, we talk about the marketplace, we talk about API access, we talk about doing different types of rev share
Yeah.
structures. Where do you where do those fit into the future of data distribution in your opinion?
Um, I think that none of them are gonna go away.
Yeah,
In my opinion, if we're talking marketplaces, API, access, and even the fulfillment model that has been around for 20 years. I don't think any of those will completely go away. I think they'll change of how people access them in the very near future. As example, back to AI, I think that in the near future, AI is going to be the access layer to which we access APIs more frequently, so that
okay.
we go to the AI layer and say, "Hey, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z," and that's translated down to the API. And the same for the marketplace. That's the marketplace directly where we're headed is explain what you want, right? Just explain what you want, explain the outcome, and having the system and the AI go, hey, here's what's available, and I'm going to put this together as a package for you and tie a bow on top of it. I think that those things will again still exist, but we're going to access them a little differently and a little, enables us to move quicker.
It's probably gonna affect some of the sales function, I would think. Less might be less need for salespeople as we go down this path over the next decade or so, I would think.
Yeah, I can't pretend to kind of have a visualization of
Right.
all the wild places, other than just saying it absolutely it's going to change
It's
the landscape a lot
game
for
changer
sure.
for sure.
Game changer.
Are
Yeah.
there specific types of data providers that you think benefit more from this model, or is everybody potentially able to use this type of model that you all offer?
I would say everyone that has data that can be easily proliferated.
Yeah.
And if you get into data sets that are of higher risk, I think are less fits for some of these models, but in general, if you're talking about, sensitive healthcare data as an example, those
With the
type of things
HIPAA, yeah.
are less of a fit. But anything that should be, get out there, and we want people to be able to access with constraints and guardrails.
Mhm.
Um, these are the guardrails that are going to help us get that data out there quickly.
So, feels like we're, like, moving from ownership, which is always a word I hate to hear, of the data,
Yeah,
and licensing, which is the usual word, to really access and usage on demand.
yeah.
So, since you're building in this space from an infrastructure standpoint, what do you think is actually changing behind the scenes that maybe people aren't aware of?
Yeah, I would say that, the high level in this theme is persisted is that the file's no longer the product, the experience is, right?
Mhm.
And, that behind the scenes, that shift is, custom coming from custom data engineering to repeatable data operations, really being able to, um, have this, ingestion, validation, enrichment, audit trails, chain of custody, and all those things being built in as core foundational parts of the infrastructure experience. And none of it works without quality data. I mean,
Yeah.
and AI will never make bad data good. That's not something that will happen. But with good data and having a good infrastructure layer, I think that getting us to a place where we have this speed and accessibility, the ability to visualize, centralize, all of those things, that's going to enable that infrastructure is going to really enable the good data to get out into the world to the right people.
Well, years ago, I worked for Dun& Bradstreet, and it would take sometimes a month to deliver a massive flat flat file,
Yeah,
okay? And now here we are with on-demand, and, it just seems like the American way. I mean, we always want everything in a hurry, right? I think more so than most societies, but and we're creating it and we're doing it. So,
yeah, quicker, faster.
I mean,
Uh,
I actually think if you don't have speed and accessibility, you can lose deals. You can,
yeah, yeah.
know, we've seen
Absolutely.
we've seen
And
it.
and I think that there's opportunity also for um, finding buyers that are new buyers,
Yeah.
where they might not know what they're looking for, and they find it. And I think those are going to start. Some of these new infrastructure and technology approaches are going to help connect people better.
I think so, and, do you think in the future we're gonna have fewer direct vendor relationships and a more centralized ecosystems like yours? You're probably gonna say yes, but I had to ask just
I guess I could say I sure hope so, right? We sure hope we're on the right track. Is what I'll say, and I think it leans towards it. I think, um, you know, not to be a broken record, but back to the AI stuff is, the more information that it has, and we'll never. I don't want to say never, but not in the short term. We're not going to feed train AI with, quality data like yours, right? Because it's valuable. It's not. We don't want to stick it in there. So, but we also want to access it, right? We want to access it in a safe way, right? So we believe that the winners will not just have better data; they'll have better rails. So the safeguards that prevent the leakage, but
Mhm.
also allowing people enough visibility to know that they're on the right track, and getting the right thing, I think is what will happen once we get that centralization model in place.
That makes sense. So, if you were advising a B2B data company like ours, um, what would you say, that when they have a particularly large data set, what are the first 2 to 3 moves that you would talk to them about modernizing their go-to-market
Yeah.
strategy?
Um, yeah. Great question. Well, I do know that you guys have a fantastic metadata layer, but I would just add that in general is metadata is becoming increasingly
Okay.
important. It's always been important. We've always cared about it and wanted it and needed it. But having that data dictionary
Tell
and
tell our listeners why the metadata is important.
Yeah. So a strong data dictionary as example, and breakdown of all the field values and the distribution of that data
Mhm.
helps us as humans understand what it is, how it should be used accurately, and what it is and what it isn't really. So that communication is a necessity, and it's always has been. But it is of course becoming more important now because as we let machines make inferences about how to use that data, connecting my ICP, I want enterprise companies that are X amount of employees that are this SIC code. Um,
Mhm.
Having that information and drilling down into it in a way that it can understand. I for one haven't memorized all the SIC codes,
Yeah, me either.
and so I think that and a machine's not going to know those very easily either. So having that in a metadata layer that we can describe, that's the first part of the Rails. Really, is letting it have access to that safely, and
Okay.
then being able to translate that down into a segment with a layer like better data that can actually give you the audience counts or the list counts using that metadata. Is kind of it's the mechanism that helps us talk back and forth together.
Okay. So
So
the more metadata, the better.
absolutely,
Okay. Uh,
absolutely.
so for a data company like us, what mistakes now that you've been doing this for a while, would you say, would you suggest that they should look to try to avoid, if any?
Um,
You think of anything?
I would say, um,
Maybe who they choose to put their data?
yeah, yeah, not continuing. I think that companies like yours have had a lot of the process and procedures that were necessary in order to do good business for a long time,
Mhm.
and not, I don't think those things are should or going to go away. I think they need to stay there in some, you know, um, making sure that everyone's transparent and communicating about what the offers are and what people are doing with the data, and is it a permissible use, and all of those things still need to be there, and making sure that the pricing and the coverage is visible. So not going away from that, but keeping those things front and center as we evolve,
Mhm.
but putting things on top of it to make sure that we can just evolve and move quicker. I think if that makes sense.
Yep, it does. So, being that you've been in this ecosystem for a while, what do you think will separate data companies that win over the next 3 to 5 years from ones that stall if they choose to continue on the same path of licensing and flat files? Do you think
Um,
do you think it's a 3 to 5 year window? I think it's shorter.
it amazes me daily how quickly things are moving with technological advances and access and the ways we are using AI. So I think it's my opinion is shorter,
Mhm.
especially for those that are gonna be on the top of the curve. And folks maybe 3 to 5 years will be the ones that are fast follows, but or maybe even late follows. I don't know, but I think now is the time to uh, continue with the productization, embracing AI and access rails and governance, all that stuff is a great time. And what was the other part of the question, Paula? I think I missed something.
Uh, no, just, it was just like where to me, the time frame is shorter, just to what you just said.
Yeah.
35 years in AI world is pretty long.
Yes. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
when I asked, I thought, wait, I don't know. I think that's 3 to 5 years is probably like a year, I would think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because when these marketplaces first started coming on a few years ago, I think they've been adopted, starting to see more and more adoption. But I also think it's from the data supplier perspective, who do I trust to put my data in there? Just to put them in every marketplace on the planet, I mean, is
Absolutely.
that really what you want to do? Or do you want to have, I mean, from your perspective, do you think that you should be saturating yourself everywhere as a data supplier or pick key relationships?
I absolutely think key relationships is necessary. I think that there's, as example, probably somebody has to get that sensitive data out into the world, and it's not our core competency, but somebody probably does that better and with their with focus. And it's not because it's sensitive, but it's because just the nature of the platform as an example, and all the compliance around it.
Mm.
Making sure that we are getting you know uh, buyer validation, things like that, in the right way, and complying with all the state laws and all that, and that's challenging enough for any type of data. But long story short is connecting the right people, connecting the right monetization places. I think APIs are going to have a place for a long time, and getting data out there in that way through a vendor that does that. If that's your the people that buy your data, tend to access it that way, and then improving it from there, that type of a thing.
Yeah, one of the things that we've had to wrestle with, I think we're finally coming to terms with is protecting the data, especially if you have something that's unique, a unique data set that not just everybody has. But
Absolutely.
then, but then you think in terms of the turnover of data. I mean, whether it's B2B or B2C, people move, companies move, context change. So if somebody's quote just trying to take data, it's not going to. It's not. It needs to be refreshed.
Yeah,
So,
ages, and that's why we rely on folks like yourselves to get that, recency and
yeah.
quality up there so that,
mean
um
Aaron, the contacts alone are 2 to 3% a month,
yeah,
for erosion. So,
yeah,
and then that's your first line of emailing and serving ads, et cetera. So, wow, this has been great. I guess you and I need to talk. So, um,
absolutely, looking forward to it.
how does, let's direct them to your website if they wanna learn more. So it's you spell it.
Yeah, it's, can be at betterdata.io, bettr data.io, and, yeah, we please, welcome any questions. We can find our contact information on the site, and we'd be happy to, connect and just be a support system for, anybody that's, looking for, um, support with their data needs.
And I would say, folks, that this is the new evolution, so you probably wanna get ahead of it rather than being behind it. So I really appreciate your time, Aaron. This has been very helpful, and
Absolutely, our pleasure.
talking to you in the near future.
Thanks, Paula, and thanks everybody for, joining in. Appreciate you.
That's it for today's episode of B2B Influence. If you picked up something new or found yourself rethinking your approach, take a second to subscribe, leave a quick comment, and share this episode with your network. And don't forget, once we hit 25,000 subscribers, one lucky listener will win a free customer analysis. Just subscribe and comment to enter. If you want to be a guest or know someone pushing the boundaries in B2B marketing, tap the link in the show notes to nominate or apply. And if you're ready to fuel smarter campaigns and more accurate targeting, check out what we're doing at OMI.